Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have a special guest from California. She is, I'll let her introduce herself on what she does and everything, but she works with law enforcement over there in Northern California. Not actually far from my hometown, but which is kind of interesting. But we met through another group through her public speaking and things like that. But anyways, Katrina, could you introduce yourself and let us know who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So, hey everyone. As was mentioned, I'm a San Francisco Bay Area resident, and I do live in California, of course. But I've been doing public speaking for a little over 24 years, just for nonprofits, small businesses, and even for the state of California, which was one of my first jobs that I had. I've been married for about 23 years now. And what's kind of unique about me is that early on, I decided to go ahead and homeschool my children. So I have 5 children, and they span from the age of millennials down to Gen Z. So currently, though, when we had met, there was 2 things that I'm highly involved with right now. And one is that I started the Mom Executives program for mothers that are just really like they want to be able to pursue their passions, but they're also a mother and they just don't know where to go with it.
Yeah.
And I was like that. I didn't have anything like that. I just had one or the other. You had a woman that was pursuing what she wanted to do, or you had the mom, and it's like you had to pick. And that wasn't my makeup. So, and then the other thing is that I am a community engagement coordinator with my local PD. So that is where we started conversation. And I asked a question in our group. And it was because I wanted to do a virtual coffee with a cop event. I hadn't seen one before, but I've seen lots of officers on social media, seen lots of officers do things online. And my current addiction is TikTok, where you're looking at all these goofy things they're doing, and you just totally see humanizing the badge. And I love it. I love it. You see, these are real people, just like you and I, making silly mistakes or just, being themselves, which I love to see, because many times I feel like they can't be themselves. Can't be themselves when they're out on the job. So I love that.
No, we did connect on that. It's actually a funny story how we connected. She posted up what would be a question you'd ask a cop, and I didn't even comment on it. All I did was put a laughing like reaction to it, and she reached out to me and she goes, "Why the laughing thing?" And then she's like, "I realized I looked into you, what you do in that, and then realized." And I was like, "Yeah, I laughed because of just the environment currently. While we're recording this, this episode." Obviously, police departments in the U.S. are getting slaughtered from, public, from, politicians, from everyone. I mean, just the other day, a couple days ago, so you kind of had an idea when this is recording, a couple days ago, Atlanta police just went, nah, screw it, we're just not responding. And so you have, massive things like that. And I know it completely goes against the values of a police officer and why they joined. But at a point, you get to a breaking point and you go, nah, enough is enough. I'm not going to be slaughtered for trying to do my job. And, and then yesterday here in New Zealand, we lost an officer and another one was badly injured. Luckily, he is recovering. He's, doing okay, had surgery in that, and he's doing okay. But, we sadly lost one. And we haven't, the last time we lost an officer to a shooting or something like that was 2009. So it's not very common for us over here. And I know it's not common, and any officer that's down is never nice, but it's awesome to see that you're humanizing, you are doing something different to humanize the badge. And I did watch part of that video. I didn't get a chance to watch all of it, but it was quite funny to watch because the guys are kind of, they're loud, the guys and female are like, they're laughing and talking about stuff. And yeah, it's quite good. So
they were so nervous.
you could tell in the beginning that they're extremely nervous. They're like, "Oh, you want to do what?"
Yeah.
And I know how it is. I was an ex-cop for 7 years. I did everything from frontline, as those officers were, all the way up to looking after VIPs and looking after the head of state. And I worked along Secret Service at one stage. And so I do understand that whole, when you're in uniform, you almost feel like you have to act as if you're not human. And it's very difficult, and in turn you're drained so quickly. But you're a busy woman. You got careers. You've got 5 kids. Oh my God, I can't imagine. You homeschool them as well. I was homeschooled through my teenage years. I can only imagine.
Okay. Okay.
I sailing around the world. I was homeschooled. It was actually probably one of the best things because it meant that one, you have a little bit more freedom, but two, you also, I think you learn a lot more because you can have some real life experience instead of just an in school experience. It's not for everyone, but um, but yeah. So
Or if
tell
you're
me,
in this time, it was for everyone. No.
yeah, it was
You have
actually.
a choice.
Yeah, it was, and we had no choice. So Katrina, tell me, what do you define as burnout for yourself? Because I know everybody has a different definition for it. But what would you define for yourself so viewers kind of get an idea of what where you're relating to?
Right. So, uh, in the last recession that we had, at the time, I was homeschooling and running my own home-based business at home, and my husband was working, and he started getting his hours drastically cut. And I was like, okay, we'll try to figure it out, try to do what we can and cut things at home. Well, you can only get so far of things you can cut without actually suffering, So, and early on in marriage, I did sacrifice a lot. I was like, okay, make sure the kids eat and I'll just try to eat less. But when recession came, I was like, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. So that's when I looked into becoming a behavioral specialist. And at that time, I had already studied, actually I studied biblical counseling at the time, and was not able to practice at that time. So when it came to time, I had a family member that was doing that type of work, but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand what it took or what they were doing because it's a little bit different than being a therapist sitting in an office. So the service is called Therapeutic Behavioral Services. And in this, there was a lot more connection and areas that you would go into, personal areas that you may not do as a therapist, meaning that you're going to go into their homes. So I worked with young people from ages 3 to 18. So it was the whole span. And it was interesting when I did my interview because they completely felt like that I was the right fit for it because of all the children I had.
Yes, that would be true.
Right. So, in the beginning, of course, it's, I want to do this. I want to help, right? I want to be able to make an impact. How can I be used to influence, to help the situation, to help what's going on in these families? And you get your training on how you have to do reports and all that kind of stuff. It's all confusing because everybody does things different. But you understand really how to chart, how they want you to chart the things, behaviors and things like that. You come up with a behavior plan. Ooh, special, right? And you convince your client to sign it. So anyways, the first part of the job is just to go in. You're going to get a case file on them. You're going to learn all about them, but you have to go in. You have to just observe the family. And in that means at that time, you have to use all your skills that you've had to be able to keep yourself calm and level-headed while all the chaos is happening, right? Because you're just watching it.
Yep, I can relate to that one.
The very beginning, you're just taking your own deep breaths, right? Yep. You're taking note, and part of that self-control is not to say anything when you see something going on, other than taking in whatever stresses are happening, but it's to keep your mouth shut, just watch, So that's like your first day. After that, you're in it. You're completely in it. I've had clients where it's just one child, or they might have 7 kids in the home. And who I'm working with not only the child, but I'm working with any caregivers. That means or through the foster care system. I'm working with probation if they've been to juvenile hall. I'm working with child and family services. I'm working with teachers. I'm working with everybody that's in their life. And my job was to be with them in the situation or the environment where the behaviors took place. So that means I went to a lot of places. I didn't have a problem with that. I liked being out on the field. If anybody can identify with that, I liked being out. not being in an office, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a lot of the viewers, especially anybody who's frontline or first responders, are like, I did this so I don't have to sit in the office.
Yes, yes, and you learn a lot of stuff about people going into different homes, right?
Yeah,
Different
definitely.
places. I was at their school, I was at their home, I was at their after school, extra activities, all that kind of stuff, to even down to the doctors with them.
Oh, wow.
Just because whatever the needs were, if I had a young person that wasn't acting right for some reason, and when I looked at the whole situation, that question might have been, did you take your meds today?
Mm.
And sometimes the answer would be like, well, we tried to get more, but my mom doesn't have a car to make it to this appointment. And I'm like, well, if I want to survive, I'm going to help you go over and get your meds.
Yeah, so you become quite emotionally involved with that.
There's a lot of aspects, yes, because not only are you spending this one-on-one direct contact with them, but it's, maybe 3 or 4 hours a day that you're with them. And you're really getting to not, like I said, just know them, but their family dynamic, everything that's coming in, and assessing how you're gonna make an impact in that. The good thing about being a behavioral specialist is that you're only working on 1 or 2 behaviors. You're not looking at their whole personality. You're not trying to change everything.
Yeah.
But some of the things that were in place that was great for us is that we also had a paid therapist on site that we had to meet with.
Huh. Yeah, yeah. That's
Right?
real good. That's real good. It's actually one thing that I think it should be mandatory for law enforcement, is that you have to go to a therapist.
Yes.
Get rid
I
of the
agree.
stigmatism around it. But
And
that's a whole
military.
nother conversation. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. And we can get into that later on, I think. But we're talking about like you and how you ended up, what you identified for your
Yes.
burnout.
So my first client lasted about 8 months, and that's actually a long time.
Mm.
The average time is supposed to be about 4 months that we're with that client. We were able to get an extension and things like that. And so after my first client, I remember meeting with a therapist and just cried. And I was like, I don't know if I did enough for him. I don't know if I did this. I don't know if I did that. He was like, you did good. You did good. He's not where he was at when he started. And, that was my first one. But after that, moving on with other clients, their situations could seem really, really tough. And how can your oneself make a change? And then when you see changes, you have to deal with the other systems that's in their life. It's not just you. So, like I said, when I talked about there's probation in their life, and if there's child and family, so there's all these systems that are going on. And in the beginning, it's like, if I could just get them all to work together, it'd be cohesive. If I could just get them all. Right? I can do
it. Yep. I can do it. I am God.
Right. Yeah. I've got it in me. I could see the way. I could see the path. So anyways, I would say maybe about the 4th or 5th client. The hardest that got for me was the ones that were in the foster care system.
Mm.
And it was because I could come in and help, but I couldn't change the system in any way. I couldn't change. If I had a client that needed shoes, I would get one organization saying, no, this organization should pay for it. Another one say, this organization should pay for it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I realized I couldn't change the situation. So even though I had techniques to be able to work with a young person and how they could get through a situation, even though they can't change anything about the situation, but they could change their thoughts and their feelings about the situation. I just literally just couldn't change everyone else, right? I couldn't do it. And in that, whenever, say, I was exhausted, say I've been out all day with a client or a couple of clients, and then now I have to go write reports on these clients, right? It didn't end. It didn't end when you left, right? And I just chose to start putting it off onto the weekend. So that means instead of doing it when I met with a client, now I had my weekend that was also filled with my job, right? and still trying to think, what could I change? What could I do differently? Who could I contact? What could I make? So it was a constant, I was keeping it on me. I was keeping it with me, right? It's keeping it, I couldn't just let it go.
Never turning
And
off.
it didn't seem bad at the time. In fact, I would just go, well, these are the things that I do as a family. Maybe I can help implement that with my clients since they're missing that, or they don't have their family. Or so those were cohesive. But after a while, when other things happen in your life that you have to just keep going on. For an example, after I dropped off one of my clients, I got into a car accident.
Oh, wow.
But there wasn't time to care for me after the car accident. Immediately, I just had to figure out what I'm going to do with the car, I'm going to do this, how am I get to work the next day. You know, there wasn't a self-care, so to speak, on how do I take care of my body right now. I immediately had to be accountable to my job. I had to tell them what happened because I was on the job at the time. I had to go through all the paperwork with that. I almost felt like I was being accused that I did something wrong because they said, well, we need to see if you've been drinking. We have to do a test. I'm like, what? Drinking? Are you serious? So little things like that. I had one time I was out with a client. One of my kids got hurt. I had the bigger car. At the time I had a van. We had a sedan and a van. I had the van out with me. And one of my kids got hurt and had to go to the emergency. I didn't know about it. So they had to call my sister to come and pick him up and take him to the hospital. And, you know, first thing, right? Self-blame. If they would have had the van, they would have just been able to take it. They would have been, you know, and after that, of course, I changed it. I was like, the family's always having the van. The family's always having the van.
Yeah.
So you try to make these little things, but after a while, when you just get tired, you start to try to figure out, or I should say, I started to try to figure out what more could I do to offset it to make it smoother? What more can I implement so then the intensity of what's going on will lessen if I do more? And I got to the point where I felt like I was exhausted. And I just needed to take a break. And I wasn't even sure if that's going to make me feel better if I took a break, meaning I just need a little vacation. Let me take a week off.
So when you say exhausted, just to clarify for our listeners and viewers, when you say exhausted, is that just physically or is it emotionally, mentally, all that? Like what aspects of you personally did you feel was exhausted?
I would say all of the above that you just said. All of the above. So emotionally, I had to realize that when I was getting triggered, it was harder to hide it. When somebody would say something to me, I had a client that was a teenager that said, when I went to go see my family, he said I was crossing the street and a car hit me. And I was shocked. I said, what? So what happened? So he lived in foster care, and I was like, did they take you to the hospital? What happened? Like, tell me the rest of the story. And he said, no. I'm like, what happened? He said, nothing. I got up and then I walked home. And I was like, did anybody say anything? He goes, no, they didn't do anything because I was Black. And it hit me hard. And I tried to keep a straight face. And he says to me, why are you crying? And I was like, I'm not crying. He goes, so why is there tears coming down your face?
Yeah.
Can't hide it, you know, because I was what more touched me is that you believe that you don't deserve help because the color you are. And it was more like you should just ask for help. Can somebody help me? Because I'm thinking if I saw that, I'd be looking at them and thinking, are they okay? Or are they moving? Are they, you know, but he didn't ask for help. So that was a whole other thing we worked on. But so emotion, I couldn't hide it like I could before, you know? And as far as physically, I started finding myself getting woozy, kind of dizzy, and I wasn't understanding why. I would just be out and I literally would feel like the earth doing this. And I'm going, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And it was because I was busy. I would take care of my family, leave from my family, go straight to with my client, done with my client, go straight back to the family again, just keep changing my hats, right? Changing my hats. And I was seriously neglecting myself. I wasn't taking the nutrition I needed. I was telling everybody else about it. I was showing them how to do it, but I wasn't doing it because I would just eat something in between the transitions. Like, okay, this is quick, let me have it. Didn't mean it wasn't healthy, but I wasn't aware either of the nutrition and taking that serious.
So if I break this down, sorry to interrupt. If I break this down, you started, and I just want to break this down for those that are listening, so that just because for me, I know if I'm listening to something, I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, and then if somebody breaks it down, it's like, oh, okay, I get the point, but this is just for me. So, and I just want to clarify. So you start doing the behavioral therapy, which is literally, like, I've got family members that are therapists, and I'm like, holy cow, like, because I'm starting to get into that life coaching and that kind of, coaching side of stuff. And I'm like, I can now understand why so many therapists get burned out. But now you're not just with one person sitting in a room, you're finding out their whole story, their whole life, and seeing all these different aspects. And then in turn, I was relating to it. I was like, oh my God. Okay. So you're going in there, you're seeing all this stuff, then you're going to all these different organizations trying to get stuff. And it's like being a police officer, you're going, I know I need all these different tools and training and, the justice system shit, because I put somebody in front of it and the guy doesn't get what he deserves and he gets let off on parole in like a year when he's been sentenced for 15. And, you start in all these different things of all this stuff is happening and I can't do anything. And, it drains you. Plus you got all the emotions going to everybody else. And then you end up finding yourself feeling attacked as well, because you get in a car accident and you're leaving a job, leaving one of the places, and you feel like, okay, now they don't trust me because they're asking me to do a breath test when really it's just probably procedure. and then also then you find that you're, can't emotionally hold yourself together in times when you need to, because you're not doing it outside of when you can.
Mm-hmm.
Plus then then you're putting all these hats back and forth, but never a yourself hat. And in turn feeling drained from everybody else. So wow, you must have felt really drained.
And and then to top that is I was looking for the organization to support that I needed the break. And so they said they would, oh sure, you can take time off, but it's unpaid time. And initially, okay, I just need it. But what I found was I said I was going to take a week and I was back in 3 days because I thought, I can't pay my bills. I can't pay my bills. And eventually, a few years later, the CEO said, well, if you can get, I say billing, but that's not, you're not going to know what that means in that company. If we can make $80,000 this month, then you can get your break. Okay, we can do that. So we made over $80,000 that month, and he didn't get back to me. And then the next month we made over $80,000. So then I went to my supervisor and I said, hey, what's going on? I don't need benefits. I just need to make sure I'm getting paid while I'm off. And she came to me and he said no. And my heart dropped.
Now you're feeling like even the organization doesn't care about you.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So you're getting even more burned. Okay, got it. Yeah. Yep, I can relate to that one. Sure, many can.
Which is amazing because you feel like you're going through it. No one else is going through it. So it's whoever's listening. You're not alone. You're not alone.
No, you're not alone at all. This is something that. Yeah. Okay, so you're at a stage where your partner, the boss person is going, you can't have it. So what happened next?
Yes. So I would say I was probably with only a year or two longer after that, because I did go to the CEO and prepared a resume to show him, okay, well, maybe I could get a promotion is what I could do. I'll work on a promotion, right? Just keep trying to problem solve. Maybe it's me, right? And by then I had a lot of people in the organization that really liked the work I did. I graduated kind of just from being a behavioral specialist to a resource specialist as well. I was the community liaison. And what all the departments wanted is for me to go into being the program developer. And so I put together a resume to show that I could be the program developer, although I knew he knew because everybody knew who I was, right? And brought that to him and said, hey, this is what I'm looking at. If it could just be a $10,000 a year raise, that's it. Because by then I really needed it for my family. I was hustling a lot. And we were doing better than when I started, of course, but my husband's hours were still being affected. And by this point, I was really assessing if my job was worth the time I was missing with my kids. And so I thought, well, if I can get a promotion, then I'll be able to afford the things that my kids want to do, not just fix things in the house, right?
So if I can do more work, earn more money, I can then be there more for them, even though I'll have less time.
Right, and they were pushing. A lot of my coworkers were pushing for me to have more time there. I found that early on that if you're really good at something, they want you there more, and and I had to learn how to say no.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
doing it well, and I still want to be able to do it well, but I have to say no.
That's real important. I think that's one thing that a lot of people forget, especially when they're real busy, is one way to prevent burnout is to say no and be selfish.
Yeah.
With everybody, even family, sometimes having to go, no, I need to take 5 minutes for myself so that I can then come back and actually be here for you.
Yes. I was
okay.
getting reprimanded. I was coming in to the office and getting pulled out by my supervisor and being reprimanded for not being there more. And I remember having the conversation with her. Well, I should say this. Initially, for the first time in my life, was getting panic attacks going to work because I thought I was going to be, as soon as I walked in, I was going to get reprimanded.
So it's getting even worse. So you've gone from dizzy to now having panic attacks. Okay, cool. Burnout's getting even worse. Yep.
Yeah. What's wrong with me? And but I remember one of those times when she did pull me out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do something different with this. And this was the first time I had a conversation with anybody saying, I have to be selfish. And I don't know if you could understand that. And the reason why I said it is because I finally came to grips that it's okay. It's okay to do that. Where it was always a bad thing if you're selfish. I couldn't do it. I was,
I think when we're younger, we're trained to care about so many people, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and do all these things and that, and you never. I don't think as a kid, I mean, my parents used to always tell me, and my parents were awesome, and I really can't complain about my childhood, but they're always like, you can do whatever you want to. But it was always a go-getting but I don't ever remember when I was a kid, and hopefully my mom will correct me if I'm wrong, my dad, but I was never, it was never a thing of, if you need to take a minute, take a minute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other, so I'm Christian, and so it's, do unto others you do to yourself. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Or, to love others and to be good to your neighbor. And I remember all the time asking in my head, what does that mean? What does that mean to love others as you love yourself? What does that mean? Because we're not taught how to love ourselves.
Mm-mm.
What does that mean? Right? So when you get to the point where you're like, okay, it's okay to be selfish. It's like, wait, it's not a sin. What do you mean? It's okay to take care of yourself. Oh, but if I do this little bit for myself, then I need to do much more for somebody else. And I remember going through a period of time way before I became a behavioral specialist where I was trying to fulfill that. And that was a whole nother story of being burnout, That I think one good point to make is that when you have these behaviors, how you do one thing is how you're going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what you're doing, like when I was in college, I went through burnout. And when I did, just mothering, burnout. I have nowhere to run. They're always here.
Yep.
So if you're not picking up, what's being told on these podcasts, I love your name. I actually love the name of the podcast. If you're not implementing some of those things anywhere in your life, you're not going to do it, even if you get out of the situation you're in. So burnout could be you just, hey, I'm done. I need to do something different. So good, do something different. But then there's compassion fatigue, which I think a lot of us are experiencing. And compassion fatigue is you absolutely love what you do, but you're exhausted doing what you do, exhausted. So if you're not implementing those, you're just going to leave what you're doing and take it somewhere else and then create the cycle again of getting burnt out.
Yeah, and this is something that I constantly, for myself, I used to love being a cop. I love what I do now. I train people on all of these kind of things, for the police force, so that they don't get burned out in it, and they don't, emotionally and have that emotional and compassion burnout. And even I get burned out with what I'm doing, and I absolutely love what I'm doing. And this is why I sometimes will go to even my clients and be like, "You're not going to hear from me tomorrow, and do not try and contact me unless it's 100% urgent, because I'm going to take care of myself."
Nice.
Yeah. So okay. So tell me a few top things that you've learned from obviously going through all of this. And I take it now that, we all have stages of burnout. We all, it comes back, and that's how we learn. We bounce back on it. We go, oh, okay, there it is again. And we kind of then move forward. Because you have to experience it, or, hear about it at least, before you can actually probably work through it and prevent it. But what are some of the tools that you use, even daily, to make sure that you don't end up feeling that fatigue, that emotional side of stuff? And I take it you don't get panic attacks anymore. So what is it that you do, say, daily, to help overcome or prevent that?
Daily, there's a few things I do. And I want to say that I'm always adding or changing. So you feel free to change those things. You're like, okay, that was good, but there's something I want to do a little differently. And of course, just know that it's okay to change. That's all. So one of the things that I do is when I get up, I pray, and then I meditate. So completely two different things. One is just get it all out of your head, right? But in praying is going back to say, okay, I believe that there's someone bigger than me, right? And I need some guidance, because I can get caught up in what's happening in the world around me. And so I try to, focus back in. I've added journaling with that, so that I could actually see what the progress is, what's the change, what's happening. Because you also might get an idea of something, and there may not be more to it, but you can go back to it and go, oh, I know what that meant, or I understand how I'm going to move in this. And a lot of ideas come on what I'm going to do with my business and things like that during that time, which is great. And how can I, that's my husky, sorry.
That's totally fine. We both love dogs. So.
She never barks either. Okay.
She's got the most, if you're watching the video, like, she's got the most beautiful husky. She showed it to me before we started recording. It's gorgeous. We both love dogs, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's funny. She likes to howl. She doesn't bark. So, okay, so praying, doing some mindfulness stuff, journaling. And then one thing that I do that I found that went back to my passion was the singing.
Yeah.
So I will add singing to that. Then I try to connect with my kids after that. Yeah. I've tried to do it differently, where I connect with them first, and we can start off an argument right away, because I'll walk into the room and go, oh man, what is going on in here?
Yeah, because you haven't taken care of yourself before you then are trying to reach out to them. Yeah. I like using the analogy, and yeah, Tony Robbins has said it. A lot of different people have said it, but the whole oxygen mask analogy on the airplane. You put your mask on first, so you're at a full, so you can then help somebody and get their mask on faster.
Yes.
You know, it's that same thing. It's the same thing. You're not taking care of yourself, then how do you expect to be there 100% for somebody else when you're sitting there starving of oxygen?
And who do they check in when you're on the plane? Who do they go to? They go to the moms, and they make sure, like, you're gonna put the mask on you first, right?
Yeah, because it is. You always are. So yeah. So you know, I know you work a lot alongside the police now. What is something that you would recommend? Because I know there's a lot of stuff in the world at the moment with the police, and I'm sure in a couple of weeks when this goes live, there will still be stuff going on because it's a continual battle. It's a continual thing with the police. What would you recommend to any law enforcement or frontline officers out there right now to be able to look after themselves in this time, or even in any time when, you know, they might feel like they're, you know, under pressure or threat, or you know, in this such high alertness that you sadly have to be as law enforcement and even as a frontline officer?
Yeah, when it comes time to decompress, to be aware of where your body's at. So some somatic awareness there. So what's going on with your body? Tense? Are you tired? Or you just take a minute and feel? So what I would think is, if you're going, it could be before you walk into your house or after you walk in your house, whatever you feel is the best transition, but to actually feel what is happening with me right now, so you know how to take care of yourself after you get into your home. That's one of the things I would say. And then you need to do, either if it's self-care where, okay, I just need to relax, or if it's, I need to go in doing my passion right now. What was my passion? My passion is, I like doing a karaoke night, then do karaoke. You know, you could be too tired to actually go somewhere, but do it at home. YouTube karaoke, okay? Right? Karaoke. If it's playing an instrument, if it's rubbing your dog and letting your dog love on you, you know, because you need the touch, you need the whatever, do that. Don't push it off. Do it then, because your body's telling you then. And it can turn into days, weeks, months, all of a sudden you're dizzy because you're not having the right nutrition, you know, like these things, because otherwise you're rubbing off all that onto the people you love, the people that adore you, the people that want to see you when you get home, the dogs that want to see you when you get home. You're going to be putting off all this other stuff, and it's not your intention. So that's what I would say. And then whenever you get your breaks, like whenever I'm around the officers, I'm trying to give them compliments, praise. I'm trying to, because I don't know what they've received. I don't know. And they might shrug it or go, oh, yeah, I don't know. Or, you know, and I'm like, no, seriously, really, really, you know, and just putting back into them, because I don't know what's getting pulled out all day long, but trying to put into them. You just need to, you know, listen to some encouraging words or something like that. Or if you've ever looked into, or not looked into, the 5 love languages, that's a book that you can look at and understand what needs to be filled up in your tank and what you need. And then you can tell the people around you as well what it is you need, you know, so yeah, take care of that.
Yeah, I think those are some really good ideas. That whole, when you get home, do that thing that you enjoy, you know, decompress a bit. One of my clients who was wanting to get in the police, she's now pregnant actually, but her partner is a cop here in New Zealand, and he will literally, if he's had a shit day at work or he's gone to a shit job or something's going on, doesn't matter what time, like he'll come home and he'll wake her up and be like, and just literally just tell her about the day and tell her about how he's feeling, and that, just to decompress that stuff off of him. And she doesn't have to say anything back. Nothing has to be said. It's just him just letting it out, her consoling with him and going, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then off he goes to bed. And, you know, and I think it's an awesome thing. It's that find that thing for you that decompresses you, you know. And to all those, I'm just going to say it real quick because it's on my mind, but to all those cops that go home and they think they have to have a beer and that's their decompress, I'm going to call bullshit. You do not need to have alcohol, because it's a downer. That is literally trying to force yourself into feeling down, not, and to lower your state. find the thing that does it naturally without needing a substance.
Yeah. One of my
Because
things was I would get home, and as soon as I walked in, my husband would say, "Hey kids, mom's home." I wouldn't make it like 2 feet past the door. And the kids are all running at me, and I was like, I just need to make it into the house. I just need to. So small things like that, and you have a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend or somebody that lives with you where you need to set that boundary and say, hey, just let me in this far. Let me just take these clothes off or put the bag down. Then you can do that, and it'll make a world of difference that they can understand and respect it. And then you can transition yourself.
I remember listening to a podcast with some wives of police officers in the States, and they said that in the beginning they had their partner was kind of the same thing. He would come home and they'd bombard him, and and then he'd get snappy and stuff like that. And they ended up coming to a thing where they communicated. Communication's a massive thing, especially with partners. You know, they came to this thing of, he's like, I just need 15 minutes when I get home, just to be silent, just to go through what I've gone through the day, what's happened, whether it be small, big, or not. And if I need less time, I'll let you know. But I just need 10 or 15 minutes to just calm. And she's like, sometimes he'll actually do it before he even gets home in his truck. He'll, he'll go for a longer drive home just to kind of decompress, or he'll put on some, music in the truck just to kind of, decompress. And it's so important, that self-care. And, we go over it. It's one thing that constantly comes up in these podcast interviews is that self-care side of stuff for the burnout. So it's awesome seeing different ways that you do it as well. Moving on, I'm a huge why guy, and my personal opinion is that everybody does something for a why or for a purpose. Kind of, the same thing, just different words. And, what would you say would be your why that has pushed you through the easy times, the hard times, and kept you going?
I mentioned a little bit earlier how I didn't find anybody else like me. And it's not to say it didn't exist. I just didn't, it wasn't in my life. It wasn't in my life. It was one or the other. You're a businesswoman, and I had some officers that was kind of like distant family. And the women, I think they had children like in their 30s. And so I was like, okay, so you got to do a full career, and you have this, you have to have that. And to get more personal with me, my first child I had when I was 16. So that was completely out the window. Yeah, first child was when I was 16, and I had to figure out how, what to do, because it was not my plan at all. However, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but we didn't have much. And she was like, you need to stay home, take care of your kid. And I was thinking, no way. I didn't want to not be home with my kid, but I was still in high school. So for me, I had to work hard to graduate, get a career going so I could provide for my son. So it was a whole different scenario than I expected my life would be. So when I did that and going through that process, I just wasn't seeing, how do you do this? How do you take care of a family? How do you pursue your passions? How do you get a career going? How do you climb the ladder? These were words that I heard, but I didn't know how you did it. How do you climb the ladder? What does the ladder look like? Where's it at?
Yeah,
I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do it because that means success. And so I was very career minded. But when I was pursuing and working hard, let's talk about burnout again, working hard, I had no time with my son. And he was growing up without me, essentially. So he thought grandma was really mom. And he didn't say it in that way, but he did not want to be with me. He wanted to be with my mother, because she was the babysitter at the time. So anyways, as I pursued, I was like, I got to figure this out. I don't know what to do, but I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep learning. And I was going to anything I could that was like leadership, conferences while working a job. And I was going to college, and I was in ministry. So I just was like, I got to figure out how to do this. And the main part of my why is because I'm here where I'm at today, but I see so many other women looking for the answer for that. Same thing. You know, they don't know what to do. They feel stuck. They don't know how to do things with their kids around. You know, I was doing my own businesses at home. So that was like, how do you do that? I used to get praise all the time with the businesses I was with. They're like, she's got 4 kids and she's pregnant. Like, and she can do this, you know? I was like, that was before we did everything online, right?
Yeah.
So when they would praise me though, I would think, isn't this the way life is though? You're either poor or you hustle. That's either one way or the other. You're poor or you hustle. You're poor or you hustle. I can't be poor. I can't have my kids needing to eat. I can't, because I went through that. I was hungry, you know, and so I didn't ever want that for my children. But then you go through ups and downs, you learn about business, you learn about all these things. And I had to come to a point and realize I actually have some knowledge that other people need. And I didn't realize it till someone said to me, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you knew how to do that. I didn't know we could go through that process or, you know, that path and I was like, oh, you didn't? Oh, you mean I know something? Okay. So I started really looking at that and found myself all the time, even though I worked with children as a behavioral specialist, all the time, adults coming to me and asking me, how do I deal with this? How do I do that? How do you do this? And one of the things that one of my friends had said to me, she goes, you do more than my mom ever did. And I was like, okay, I don't understand. She says, my mom had 4 kids. And what she did is she went in her room and she shut the door. And she said if she had to come out, she's gonna beat us. It was like, all this stuff you do is amazing to me. And I don't understand, you know, how you're able to do it all. And I started coining the phrase to people that we all have 24 hours. It's just what you do with it. So, and that came with not doing 3 million things in it. It came with being very focused. Being in the present of what you're doing. And then when you transition to the next thing, that's where you're at, is with that next thing. You're not everywhere, you know, you're not everywhere. So my why is that there's a ton of women, mothers, there's men too, plenty of men, but it's the mothers that usually come to me and they're asking me, how do you do it? What did you do? And more than anything, they have the ability to do it, they just need navigation. That's all.
Yeah. So in other words, you want to educate them so that they don't have to go through what you did. Yeah.
And that they could do both. Doesn't have to be career or motherhood. You could do both. Yeah.
You can do both, and you can do both efficiently.
Yes.
Awesome. So what would be your number one piece of advice for listeners?
For what?
For listeners, what would be your number one piece of advice?
Oh, as far as preventing burnout?
Just for in your industry, first off, what would be your number one advice for listeners in that whole, showing that you can do both things? You can have a career and a family. What would be your number one piece of advice?
Which one do I want to land on?
I know there's so many, but if you had to pick one.
There is. I know the first thing that I would like to point out is when you're hearing about the things that you could do and you're exhausted and you're on burnout and you just compassion fatigue, you just like everything. When you're told all these steps you can do, it feels extremely overwhelming to hear, okay, I got to get the right sleep, I got to eat right, I got to exercise, I got to have time for me, and now I got to schedule that, and I can't even think straight, right? All these things. So what I've done is I've just took one of those and worked on implementing the one and learning about the one, because that's the way I am. I like to research and learn and all that. When I learn thoroughly about that one, because a lot of times information that's given out is very general. And I was like, somehow I have to make this fit for me. And I didn't think that initially. I thought, well, I don't fit it. So now there's something else wrong with me. Right? Oh, now I can't, I don't fit that either. Can't do that right. Just all this bad, negative talk. So the one thing. So if you feel like I want to work on my negative self-talk. Then start implementing that, and you can't put yourself down in the beginning because you hadn't done it before, you hadn't done it before. So, or if it's, I just want to drink water more. I just need more water. I think I'm dehydrated. This is why I'm acting the way I'm acting. Okay, well, there's little things you can do and helps you can do. Anything.
I like that. Baby steps, and almost be happy with failing.
Yes, which is another thing you're not told you can do.
Be happy with failing.
Yeah.
I actually love failing. I remember when I was younger and I was, in those stages, I was like, I hated failing. I had to be perfect. I had to get there now. I had to do it now. Why am I not getting there now? And now I'm like, cool, let's go fail. Let's go fail. Because when you go fail, you learn.
It frees you.
In order to grow, you got to learn. Yeah. And
it totally frees you. I got more successful in business when one of the leaders said, you need to go out and see if you can get this many no's. And once you hit that, you've made the goal, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, you get a no, you get another point. And just tell them thank you. And it was weird because I would call and ask my whole spill and everything, and someone would go no, and I'm like, thank you. We're like, what just happened?
Yeah. But the thing is that it's almost like if we, because we both kind of deal with law enforcement, it's almost like the whole thing now. It's like it's okay to be angry. It's okay to not get everything right. And it's okay to have people not liking you because it's just human nature.
Yes.
And it's okay to, and granted, it still sucks. Like, I'll get a no and I'll be like, God damn it, what did I do wrong? But I'm like, okay, now let's learn from it. Let's see what I did do wrong. Let's grow and experience it. But it's okay to have a no and to fail on things, because then you grow.
Be scared.
Yeah.
It's okay to be scared when you do it.
Yeah.
That was my main thing. I was like scared out of my pants. So scared. Almost everything I did, I was scared. And it was because I've never seen it done before me. Now in my life, I have mentors and coaches. The kid that has gone before me, that has experienced these things. I highly recommend that. Get a mentor or coach, talk to Chris. Your mom, talk to me. Get someone, because they can help you. They've been through all that stuff. And that it's okay to fail, and you can have somebody that's going to be, got your back.
Yeah, exactly. So on that, if somebody's looking for you, if they want to talk to you, say they're a mom and they're like, okay, I've got this career, but I want to spend more time with my kids, or I've got these kids and I want to actually be more successful in business, especially with all this COVID stuff. Lots of people I know in the US or even here in New Zealand, around the world, are losing their jobs, and they're like, oh my God, yeah, I get more time with my kids, but now I can't pay my mortgage or my rent. So they're like, okay, I want to, do these things, or they have this opportunity to be able to do what they actually want to do instead of what they're told they have to do. If they wanted to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing that?
Okay. So I'm on Facebook, and the name is Katrina Garcia Speaks. And then also on Instagram, Katrina Garcia Speaks. And I also have a free gift for you. If you go to Moms of Gen Z, so MOMSOFGENZ, so momsofgenz.com/dopamine. And what this is going to talk about when you go into it is it's going to talk about the release of dopamine and the natural ways to release it. And we didn't talk too much about it today, but a lot of times what we're doing, the things we're doing, is because we're looking for that release. We're looking for that quick high, right? And today we can find it so many different ways. The top way is just picking up your device, right?
Everybody picks up the cell phone and they post something on social media and they go, how many likes did I get?
constant, right? So if you want to get into more of yourself and be able to take care of yourself, there's natural ways to do that. So on there, you'll get that once you go in there. And then you'll see the other things that I do as well. So you can go on there, or you can find me on Instagram or Facebook, and we could talk further on it. But the one thing that I wanted to add was, for now, if you need to do something right now, I highly encourage that you just get into humming, singing, any of those things, because we can all do it no matter if we're out of tune. Actually, the truth is, if you hum, you're actually not out of tune, ever.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you're never out of tune.
Oh,
Never out of
okay.
tune. So once you know, and you don't have to know the words to the song either. You
No,
know, oh, I
this
forgot
is
the
true.
words, right?
This is
Know the
true.
words to the song. So if you hum, you sing, or even if you know how to play, if you do any of that, or listen to music, period. I used to do that between seeing my clients, and also leaving from my home to see my clients, because people are like, how do you work with all those kids and then you go work with kids? So I just put
Yeah.
on music.
I can relate to that. First off, I want to say that all the links to be able to get a hold of Katrina are going to be down in the description below this recording, or wherever you're listening to this or watching this. And as far as the music goes, yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, I've always been a music person, always listened to lots of music, and like songs will come on and it'll take me back to my teenage years. Like,
Yeah.
it'll take me back to like sailing through, like doing a crossing and be like, cruising along, sailing, that because I grew up sailing through my teenage years.
Awesome.
And it'll take me literally back to like 12:30 at night, stars out, and just like cruising along, hauling ass, and through the water. And it's like, it does. And then like, I'll be in the, it does. You're dead right on that. And I think about it, but I don't think about it all the time. And it's like, yeah, that actually music is just, it calms your soul.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be happy music.
No.
It's whatever mood you're in, you can listen to those songs, and it will help you. When you listen to music or even participate it, they've looked at MRIs and your whole brain lights up.
Oh, wow.
It's not just one area, it's the whole brain lights up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's very,
Yeah.
very.
No, I definitely, yeah. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there's times where I'll put on stuff and like literally, if you can't even, the screaming rock music, and sometimes I'll have it on because I'm like, that's the kind of mood I'm in, and just get it out of myself. And then other times it'll be like listening to like happy music from like Trolls and stuff like that, or like I'll listen to music. Like one day I was listening to music from The Lion King, like literally like Hakuna Matata dancing around the room. It was
Oh, that's
hilarious.
funny. I was singing that yesterday.
Oh, funny. Okay, so last question I have for you before we wrap it up, Katrina, is what would be the number one thing you would tell viewers to prevent or counter burnout?
To prevent or counter burnout.
Yeah.
One would be the singing.
Yep.
So yeah, one would be the singing. Just because, like I said, not only do you not, know the word or not know the words or whatever, there's a thing called scatting, and that's just syllables. And when I was younger, I used to do that, but I didn't know what I was doing. I just would hear a song and go, it's contrary to that, and it makes sense, And so later on in life is when I learned about it. I was like, oh, look at this. Oh, I just want to try it. So that's great for transitions. As far as dealing with, say, like people on your job and coworkers and things like that, the number one thing I could say is get to know them on a personal level. Like supervisors, bosses, make mandatory meetings that they have to go to where they can play games and build rapport. Once you build those connections, they're going to understand why this person is doing that. Why did that person behave like this? How come they don't do things the way I do? How come they didn't submit that on time? These little things that like irk you. Why they come late? Once you know them as a human being and how they work and everything, okay, I understand, And then as far as like coworkers and things like that, you can find similar passions. Like I said, if you want to do karaoke, see who will go with you.
Get to know people on a personal level. And this is one thing that I always say, for the police and, law enforcement as well, because, half the time I know at least here, and I've been talking to cops over there, is they feel like the manager, the chief, or everybody above them doesn't get them. It's because they never talk to them. They don't actually, whereas if, you got to know at least a handful of people and be like, actually, I talked to the chief the other day and he was, blah, blah, blah. And then that rubs off on other people, even if they don't
Yes,
personally one-on-one interact with them. So same
I
thing
agree.
in corporate world. It's the same exact thing. If I know like one of my wife's old CEOs, he would literally every Monday would walk around the whole building and just say hi to people
Yeah,
and get to know them and be like, hey, how's your day going? And build that
right,
rapport. And
right.
so yeah.
I do community engagement coordinators, same thing, as I'm going around and I'm learning more. And that's the reason, excuse me, that's the reason why the job that I was at as far as behavioral specialist, the reason why they wanted me to become the program developer is because I took out time and I was going to each of the departments and getting to know them and having conversation and understanding them. So when one department was complaining about, well, we don't get the resources that this one do, then I actually could talk to them and say, actually, this is what's going on with them. These are some of the things they're dealing with, and they're trying to. And so they felt heard, but then they understood what was going on with other people.
Yeah. For communication and eliminating the stories, having more facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, Katrina. Well, thank you very much for being on the episode today. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure listeners and viewers will learn a lot from it. Some good insight. The music one is new to me, even though obviously subconsciously I would have known it, but it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it brings it into my head. So that's one of the big things that I picked up from this. And if you're listening, remember, you're not alone. Everybody goes through this. There is not one person in the world that can say that they've never been through any kind of stage of burnout, because we all have done it either as a kid or as an adult. You're going to go through it in some ways. So we're just here to give you tools, give you tricks to help you work through things, and for you to know that you're not alone. And it's natural. It's, we're all human. So again, episodes go live every Friday morning, New Zealand time, 6 a.m. We do our best to have a new episode every single week. We haven't missed a week yet since we started. And again, thank you again, Katrina, for joining us. And till next time, team, make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know who you want us to interview if there's anybody. And we love you all. And remember, stay healthy and look after yourselves.